So we'll start with this. We're really pleased to have our first speaker join us today. Margaret Jenny is the president of RTCA, and she's been the president there since 2008. RTCA is a private not-for-profit association founded in 1935 as a Radio Technical Commission for Aeronautics. That's what the acronym stands for. They are the premier public-private partnership venue for developing consensus among diverse competing interests on critical aviation modernization issues. She has extensive aviation experience ranging from work at an aviation consulting firm, U.S. Airways, and the MITRE Corporation. Through her work as president of RTCA, Margaret Jenny is facilitating the critically important work that is improving the safety and efficiency of our national airspace system. RTCA has effectively facilitated the Next Gen Advisory Committee, or the NAC, which you've referred to many times, for the past 7 years, which Paul Rinaldi has sat on during that entire time. In 2016, RTCA worked to pull together with the FAA the Drone Advisory Committee, and I am honored to sit on that group as well. We're working to bring all the stakeholders together to make sure we ensure successful integration of unmanned aircraft into the national airspace system. Margaret has worked with NACA all through the good times and the bad. She's always been there supporting our involvement in all the work that needs to take place. So it is my pleasure to bring up the president of RTCA, Margaret Jenny, to speak to you this morning.
Well, I must say, as much as I love Paul, I am thrilled to be introduced by one of the most powerful women in aviation, Trish. So I want to thank both Paul and Trish and NACA for giving me this opportunity to address all of you, the men and women who work so tirelessly every day of the week to make our skies and our airports the safest on the globe and the most efficient. I have the distinct pleasure of actually working in Washington, D.C. and being happy to come to work every day. As the president of RTCA, I get to work with virtually every organization in aviation and the very passionate people who work there. Our mission at RTCA is to develop consensus-based recommendations to the FAA at their request. Our recommendations run the gamut from highly technical to deeply operational to policy. Some take the form of minimum performance standards for aircraft systems and serve as the basis for FAA regulations. Others provide input to the FAA's investment decisions on next-gen, and still others help to resolve real-world operational issues facing those who operate in the national airspace system and those of you who provide air traffic control and traffic flow management services for those operators. So today, I just want to take a little time and talk about the work of the RTCA committees and how it's shaping the ATM system, paving the way for that needed modernization without compromising safety, efficiency, or the environment along the way. Through our history, it spans 80 years, and no, I wasn't there at the beginning when it was formed in 1935, but I thought a little history, and I promise recent history, would illustrate for you how important the role of the stakeholders has been in shaping this enviable system, but specifically, how important the controller's voice has been in that collaboration. I don't need to remind this audience of the vast diversity of those who are operating in the system. And demand for that airspace is growing in size, complexity, and diversity. Among traditional manned aviation, as operators equipped for next-gen with sophisticated capabilities, controllers must deal with mixed equipish environment, and that's not going to change. And if that's not enough of a challenge, new entrants, such as unmanned aerial systems or drones, along with commercial space operations, are requiring us to look for innovative ways to integrate these new entrants into the airspace. So, in 2007, I'm back. the JPDO published a 2025 concept for NextGen. The FAA realized that they needed a well-defined roadmap to get to that vision, and that to develop such a plan would require input from all the stakeholders. They came to RTCA to establish the NextGen Implementation Task Force, also known as Task Force 5. 350 people from 140 organizations showed up to help, and NACA was at the table and a key player. The results, 7 months later, was a plan short on capability, but long on detail. It turns out details matter. NextGen is not just, and probably not even mainly, a technology program. We simply will not succeed without addressing many of the non-technical components, such as training, airport community outreach, procedures, standards, policies, culture, politics. So Task Force 5 report laid out a plan to address all of these components with the highest priority operational capabilities. That plan enjoyed the consensus of all 350 participants. Not only did we get engineers, analysts, manufacturers, pilots, controllers, traffic flow management specialists, dispatchers, automation providers, airport operators, union leaders to listen to one another, we actually got finance people and tech pilots from the same airline to learn from one another. Finance people learned new acronyms like ATC, ADSB, CDM, while pilots learned about ROI, or return on investment. Perhaps, though, one of the most important recommendations in the report was to establish an ongoing venue for collaboration. And the FAA listened and established the NextGen Advisory Committee as its sunset Task Force 5 in 2010. The NAC is chaired by an airline CEO and includes 35 top executives from virtually every segment of aviation. Your own Paul Rinaldi is a vocal and constructive member of the NAC. Dave Barger of JetBlue was the first chairman. The current chairman is Dave Bronczak, who's the CEO of FedEx. Bill Ayer of Alaska Airlines and Richard Anderson of Delta Airlines each held positions for 2 years in leadership. What's the NAC accomplished? Well, it's been a venue for diverse, sometimes competing stakeholders where they hammer out consensus on some of the toughest challenges associated with implementing NextGen. From 2010 to 2012, or the Barger era, we saw the development and delivery of reports to the FAA establishing performance metrics for NextGen, weighing in on some of the long-term concepts like trajectory-based operations, and setting overall priorities aimed at delivering early benefits. From 2012 to 2014, under Bill Ayer's leadership, the NAC established a blueprint for successful deployment of PBN procedures, learning from previous lessons. The NAC then looked at nearly 150 operational capabilities in the FAA's NextGen plan and established a set of priorities, listing 11 Tier 1 priorities and 11 Tier 2 priorities. So having succeeded at doing that in a matter of months, the FAA asked for more. They asked us to name the top 4 priorities. The response was also a consensus: surface traffic flow management and data sharing, multiple runway operations and wake recategorization, data communications, and PBN. From 2014 to 2016, under Richard Anderson's leadership, the FAA has been working very closely with industry through the NAC ever since to put laser focus on implementing those 4 priorities. Attention has been directed at ensuring operators are equipped for 2020 ADSB mandate and to continuing the very important outreach to airport communities as we go to implement PBN. As the NAC embarks on its 4th, second 2-year time frame under Dave Bronczak, our new chairman has laid down the gauntlet and challenged us to implement NextGen in the Northeast corridor. So I would be remiss if I didn't call out some of the leaders who have embraced this unprecedented collaboration with industry and the unions. Victoria Wasmer, the acting deputy administrator, jumped into the deep end. I think it may be because she's a swimmer. And she took a role in leading the FAA on both the NAC and the DAC, which I'll talk a little bit about. She's been providing that leadership to those committees and to the people within the FAA. Terry Bristol and her team, as well as Jim Eck and his predecessor, Ed Bolton, and their team have worked side by side with their industry counterparts to establish milestones and work to deploy the 4 top capabilities at locations agreed to by the NAC. And I tell you, this is a lot of work for everyone who has day jobs. Peggy Gilligan, John Hickey, and their team have also worked closely with RTCA and our industry committees to identify and resolve regulatory challenges to expediting the implementation of NextGen. And the FAA has not shied away from perhaps the biggest challenge, namely NextGen in the Northeast Corridor. This initiative will require all the tools in our toolbox. We have to ensure that we don't set unrealistic expectations. We have to forge consensus on what exactly it means to implement NextGen in the Northeast Corridor, and we have to work together to identify and mitigate all the roadblocks along the way. But we're in this together. Now, while the NAC was tackling challenges implementing NextGen, ATO, with strong push from Lynn Ray and approval from David Grizzle, saw the wisdom of working with industry in a venue like the NAC to focus on more tactical but no less challenging issues. And actually, to be perfectly honest, Mr. Grizzle was a bit of a skeptic at the beginning, and he gave the talk 1 year to prove its worth. It's still going. So thank you for that. The Tactical Ops Committee was formed in 2013, and it's co-chaired by Brian Quigley, who's a managing director and chief pilot for United Airlines, and your own Dale Wright of NATCA. NATCA has been an integral part of the success of the TOC, which has tackled and resolved numerous issues, including serving as the government's NOTAM improvement panel, developing criteria for the VOR minimum operations network, improving Caribbean operations, establishing criteria for Class B airspace, PBN route structure. They have not shied away from challenges that Lynn Ray has given them. It's a safe place for operators and controllers to collaborate, to walk in each other's shoes, find win-win solutions, and keep the system operating at the highest safety and efficiency levels. I believe one of the most profound lessons we have learned since Task Force 5 brought hundreds of people together to figure out how we can modernize the system while continuing to operate it is this. It's not really about technology. The devil's in the details. And if you ignore the devil, he will come back and get you later, when it's much, much harder to solve the problems. Next-gen related deployments are replete with lessons learned of what worked and what didn't work. PBN won't necessarily deliver operational benefit unless controllers have metering and spacing tools. Wake recat benefits are limited by the aircraft in-trail pairings at the airports. Even a lead carrier for BPN implementation with differences in how airlines fly can limit the benefits of PBN. Concerns of airport communities can significantly slow the pace of NextGen if not consulted and addressed early and throughout the process. Airport collaborative decision-making, data sharing won't work if all potential proprietary political issues are not resolved. And ADS-B will be limited in its benefits if all do not equip. The best way to identify non-technical challenges to modernizing the ATC system is to seek out and listen to all the stakeholders early in the process and throughout the implementation. The FAA, under the leadership of Michael Huerta, has established the venue to do that. The NAC and the TOC continue to tackle tough issues. NACA is a critical player at the table. Your interests have been well served by your NACA representatives. Before I leave the stage, I wanted to get on, for you to get on with your agenda today. I wanted to just take a minute to talk about the latest committee that Trish referred to, established last year by the FAA, called the Drone Advisory Committee, or the DAC. As with the NAC, the membership includes top-level executives from about 35 organizations, but these stakeholders are both from manned and unmanned aviation. It is chaired by Brian Krzanich, who's the CEO of Intel Corporation. So forging consensus on the NAC and the TOC was a challenge. I tell you, finding common ground between new entrants and traditional aviation stakeholders takes that to a new level. It's a clash of cultures that surpasses anything that we've addressed in aviation before. But I firmly believe that we can and will learn from each other if we take the time to listen to each other. And the good news is that to a person on the DAC, members put safety first. Trish Gilbert serves on the DAC, and other members of NACA play key roles in DAC task groups. And as with the NAC and the TOC, able contributors like Jim Ullman and Jeff Woods are providing valuable input to the consensus process. The DAC has decided on its top priorities to tackle first: airspace access to the drones, what it will take to get that. The second is roles and responsibilities between the state, local, and federal government on laws and regulations and how those are enforced. And the third, very important, is funding for the provision of service to these new entrants. And as with all previous policy committees at RTCA, the voice of the controllers will be heard and will help shape the recommendations to the FAA. ATC is not a spectator sport, and NACA's voice is helping shape the game plan all along the way. I want to thank you for your attention and thank you for all you do that makes the most of us not think twice when we scan our boarding pass and walk on that airplane confident that we will make it to our destination in one piece. And I want to just add, given all that's been happening in the last few months or weeks, that what we're doing and the importance of collaboration in moving us forward is a little bit under attack right now, and I think all of your voices are going to be important to be heard and pushed forward so that we are making it clear that there is a space, a place in this business where we have to bring people together and find win-win solutions. And what we do is a little bit precarious right now with some of the new regulations. We're working very hard to keep all of this going forward, and we would like to continue to work as closely as we always have with NACA. So thank you very much and enjoy your last day.